welcome to our last episode.
We're back.
And this time we have Dairy Queen. Daisy recommended this, so
I did. Y'all should try the gravy from there.
it's
so
actually not bad. I thought it was gonna be worse, but
good. It's really good.
I got me a strawberry milkshake for my drink.
And I got Dr. Pepper, like always, of course.
Okay, so in the last two episodes we talked about, well, in the first one we talked about his childhood, and in the second one we talked about his actual like crime. And so in this episode we're gonna be talking about his after he got caught and like his sentencing and all that. So let's just get started. So we left off last episode where a group of boys discovered like a grave of 30 dead bodies, and they reported it to the police. So in 1998 the police had discovered the bodies of these boys, and it was all in a span of 2 days along a hillside, which is where they had left which is where Luis had left the bodies. And so when they did discover it, they saw that all of the bodies had similar like signs of sexual assault. And so as the police further investigated the scenes of the crimes, they found a letter left by Luis that had led them to the house of his current girlfriend at the time.
So when the officers arrived at the house, the girlfriend handed the police. They handed Garavito's previously dropped off bags with them.
Like Luis had,
My bad.
he would leave the bags,
trophy bag.
the bags of trophy at the relatives and his girlfriend's house.
So that's what she handed over to the officers. And then with that also came some of his journals, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the police waited on Luis to show up at the house. Garavito was pinned to a list of mass murderers and was arrested for attempted sexual assault.
So, as it turns out, there are many eyewitnesses that had connected Garavito to the incident. Like when we talked about when he was working at the supermarket and he would take these breaks. There were eyewitnesses that would see him walking with the younger kids, like oftentimes drunk, and sometimes just like normal out in the day. So,
But nobody said anything.
nobody said anything. The bystander effect.
Remember that.
So eventually, Luis Garavito was taken into custody by the police on April 22nd, 1999.
So this is when they finally took him, and that's why.
That's why they took him.
Okay, get that out. Because I was trying to make a point. But there was nothing to point.
Okay. So, while he was in custody, the police were able to link him to multiple other cases of the mutilated children throughout Colombia. And they did this by referencing his journals and various different trophies. So as we discussed in the last episode, Luis would write down like the victim's name, their age, like probably a description of their like how they look, as well as the place that he would leave the body at.
Which is crazy, like how he would keep a record of like all that.
Yeah.
It's like imagine just opening a journal and it just says the names of all these kids that were
All
murdered.
these dead bodies and like
where-
the exact.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so, police were even able to match his DNA. Like we talked in the last episode, he would often leave bottles of beer at the scenes of the crime. So they were able to find DNA on those bottles and track it back down to Luis.
Garavito also had a rare eye condition that required him to use a specific type of glasses. Police held a prison-wide examination that would link Luis to certain crime scenes.
So while they had him in custody already in prison, they had held like a prison-wide examination to try and figure out who these specific glasses matched to.
Mm-hmm.
and that's how they were able to pin him to again multiple other crimes. And Luis eventually ended up confessing to killing 140 children, and through further investigation, the police were able to link him to another 30 plus victims. So
which is crazy.
he had killed a lot.
It was a lot.
Reports say that he killed anywhere between 150 all the way up to 300 kids throughout his whole time of like, you know, killing.
Yeah. So now we're moving forward to the sentencing. This is where stuff starts. You know, it escalates after escalating.
They try to go up on the escalator.
Yes. So Luis was tried in Colombia, where life sentences were not allowed. So at this time, I think it was only like 40 years.
Is the max somebody can be sentenced?
Yeah, like no matter the crime, which is crazy.
Eventually, yeah.
Like you could do anything,
and you cannot
you
get life.
don't get more. Yeah.
And it's still to this day in Colombia, you cannot be sentenced to life. Now the max in Colombia, they improved it after this case and a bunch of other cases during the time of like the cartel and that stuff.
Yeah.
So that now they increased it to
like 60?
Yeah, a maximum of 60 years.
Which I still think is crazy though.
Yeah.
It's like,
and so Luis was given the maximum of 40 years. However, if he would have actually been sentenced to what, like in America, for example, he would have been sentenced to 1,853 years and 9 days in prison. But I was looking at another source, and they also say he would have been sentenced to 2,800 years. So anywhere between 1,800 to 2,800 years is how many he would be sentenced to prison if he were to do those crimes in like a place like America.
yeah. But Luis actually cooperated with the police and led them to find the bodies of a lot of his victims. Because of this, his sentence was reduced by another 22 years.
So, yeah.
He didn't have many years in the first place and was reduced so many years.
So he initially had like around 2,000, then it got knocked down to 40, and then knocked down another 22 to 18 years in prison.
Yeah.
And so, since he cooperated with the police, he got these 22 years like taken off. And so, but while Garavito was in prison, he was kept isolated in the prison, and he was eligible for parole in this year, 2023. I'm pretty sure it's still later in the years when he's being able to be eligible for parole, so not yet. But in 2020, Luis was medically discharged and he was diagnosed with leukemia while he was in prison. So this caused him to be transferred in and out of hospitals while in prison. So he was transferred from hospitals to maximum security prisons throughout the whole year.
Garavito then gained to the longest prison sentence in Colombian history, and it was reduced to 25 years. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so, again, he should have gotten around 2,000, but he ended up getting...
Yeah, I think something like that deserved a lot more.
But, I actually don't know why Colombia, like, made the rule work. Because there was a lot of crimes going on at the time. So, like, I would understand if they were to enforce life sentences. But I guess it's because, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
But the most now is 60 years, which, depending on how old somebody is, could be their entire life. Like, if they're put into jail, like, at 20, like, they'll get out at 80. And by that time, it's like, you're too old. Like, you can't...
Yeah.
Really like do any.
But I mean, when it was like 40, it was still like I felt like that was still little.
You could have gotten out like at 60 or 50, and you still could have like been plotting or anything.
Yeah. But it's crazy how much he changed, like looks wise. We saw some like I think he did a new interview not too long ago. They allowed him to do an interview, and I think he was seen for like the first time by like the public again.
And he looked very different.
He looks really different. I think like the whole situation with him being like sick and stuff definitely changed his appearance a lot. Okay, we're back.
So after Garavito's sentencing, the Colombia law, like we talked about before, it was changed from 40 years of maximum sentence in prison to now 60 years. And his true victim count is still to this day unknown, but researchers and police estimated it to be around 138 to 300 victims.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You think there's still like other like victims that like are still missing to this day, and he had something to do with them?
There definitely is. Throughout like his killing, like police were unable to identify a lot of his victims. So it's definitely possible that there are still victims and families who still aren't able to get justice or peace. With like Garavito being the killer, like a lot of them probably still don't even know who killed them. A lot of them probably think their kid is still missing.
They're still looking for them.
Yeah.
That's really sad, to be honest. I think this story is honestly really like disturbing, and it's like almost so unbelievable, you know?
It is like this is like something like straight out of like a horror movie. Like
No.
no, it's not. It's out of a fairy tale.
Okay. But
yeah, so this episode was kind
of short.
It was kind of short because
there wasn't much to it after. I think it was really where the main point was like
how much years he got taken off of his initial amount of sentencing.
But who knows? We may be back another day with another episode in the future once he gets let out.
Yeah, he is set to be let out in parole in 2023.
We just don't know when exactly.
We just still don't know when, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't happened yet. So, but supposedly 2023, he's out in parole. But
imagine he sees this.
I did not even think about that. He is still alive, and we're over here doing this about him. If we get killed, y'all, we got
at least make us go viral.
At least make us go viral,
please.
Dairy Q pay for our funerals.
Right. We're gonna get sponsored by Dairy Queen, Wendy's, and Taco Bell.
Better be.
Our caskets are gonna be printed with their logo.
So that was it for today's episode. Again, it was kind of short, but there wasn't really much to his sentencing. Just the main part was how many years he got deducted from his initial sentence.
Yeah.
So with that,
this is the end of this little series.
This is the end of our series. It's sad. No,
that is sad.
It's sad, but this story was sadder, and I'm
already sad.
I'm ready to move on from this because I don't want to be talking about it anymore.
Right.
Karma's gonna get me.
Okay, so that's it for today. And until next time.
Until next time, y'all.